Hello and welcome to Pacific Dialogue. I'm your host, Jia Wei. Today we are so pleased to be joined by a special guest, Carlos Martinez. He is a British activist and writer whose work mainly focuses on international affairs, and he has written widely about China's development. And Martin is also the co-editor of Friends of Socialist China and also the co-author of The East is Still Red, Chinese Socialism in 21st Century. And on that note, Martin, welcome to Beijing.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here.
I would just wonder, when did you first visit China? And what was your impression back then? And how does that compare to now?
So this is my sixth visit number 6 to China. First visit was in 2019, December of 2019 and January 2020. First impressions were that it's so modern, the infrastructure is so good, so easy to travel, trains, metro is really nice. The city is very well organized, very clean. You don't see homeless people. I think coming from the West, that felt really refreshing, really unusual. For example, where I live in London, if I go outside of my apartment and walk for 50 meters or 100 meters, I'll definitely see some people who are living on the street, who don't have anywhere to live. It's only 6 years ago, so it's not such a long time that I've been coming to China. I think you can see the infrastructure has continued to improve, and it's become easier for foreigners. It's easier to, go on the metro now. I think back then, 2019, 2020, it was quite difficult to figure out how to buy a ticket to go on the metro. It was quite difficult to take a taxi and work out how to pay for it. Now it's easier for foreigners to use WeChat and Alipay. It's easier to get around. I think China's become more accustomed to foreign guests, foreign visitors. But I think 6 years is quite a short period of time, even in China, which is a country where things change quite fast. One thing I do notice is that there's more green space. And my friend who lives in Beijing told me this as well. He says he lives in the northern part of Beijing. He says it feels like every month they're opening a new park or they're building some new set of trees down the road or avenue nearby. So Beijing is becoming much greener. And I've been 2 or 3 times to Guangzhou, maybe 2 times to Xi'an, and you can see that there's this trajectory towards becoming more green and making places more pleasant to live. And it's obvious that people's quality of life is very good and getting better all the time. People carry themselves with dignity, I think there's a sense of optimism, of happiness.
Yes, sometimes you have to really be in the place to get a feel of what it's like. So do you think people in the West truly understand what China is today? Because there are many, as you said, narratives about China. And how might China's 240-hour visa-free policy, which it just announced last year, help improve that kind of understanding?
Yeah, I think for a long time, there has not been a very good understanding of China in the UK and in the West in general, because the media presentation of China, it's very ideological. For people who haven't visited China, or maybe they don't have a connection to China, or they don't have much opportunity to learn the truth about China, they'll probably have some prejudices and not have a very good understanding and not realize that actually people in China live very well, and actually there's celebration of diversity, and what China has achieved with its poverty alleviation campaign is the most extensive, it's the biggest accomplishment in human history in terms of poverty alleviation and improving people's quality of life. People don't understand, for example, that China is the renewable energy superpower and that China is doing more than any other country to prevent climate breakdown and to preserve the environment. So because people aren't exposed to this knowledge and because they're kind of fed anti-China propaganda, they don't understand China so well. So I certainly think it would benefit people to visit China, and the 240-hour visa policy will certainly help. It's going to make that a lot easier. So I think there's some grassroots interactions that are really helping to change the narrative about China.
So why do you think China has been able to accomplish so much? And what is your take on how these accomplishments fit into Chinese modernization as well as the whole process, people's democracy?
I think China's got very high quality governance. It's a very well organized, well managed country. Connected to that is the nature of China's political system. China has its own type of democracy, which you've talked about as whole process people's democracy. And the difference between that democratic process and Western democratic process is that in the West, there's a very close link, a very close correlation between money and power. So if you have money, you have more political power, you have more influence. So the governance in a capitalist country, and certainly in the US being the most extreme case, works predominantly in the interests of wealthy people, whereas governance in China, in a socialist country, works in the interests of the people as a whole, but particularly the working class and the peasantry. And because of that, because the government is able to make decisions about allocating resources, is able to make decisions about what the priorities for the country are, in a country like China, in a country where the Communist Party plays the leading role in the government, in a country where it's socialist or oriented towards socialism, the government can make that choice to prioritize meeting the needs of the poorest sections of society. To have a project like the Targeted Poverty Alleviation Campaign, where you identify and then to work with them individually to find a sustainable way to get them out of poverty and keep them out of poverty, be it by building a roof on their home or building a new training college or setting up a relationship between a farm in Western China and an online marketplace in Eastern China. All of these things require huge amounts of resources. That's why China's had the biggest successes in poverty alleviation, in renewable energy, in electric vehicles, in forestation, biodiversity protection, managing the pandemic.